welcome to this presentation. Basically, it's a review that we do of the state of testing report of 2023, and we will get into, what's state of testing and why 2023 and stuff like that, and intro who you're looking at. And yes, don't worry, guys, Daniel, that's a background for Daniel. He's not going to be run over. But before we get started, the project of the state of testing, and it should have been the other way around, but it doesn't matter. It was started by basically myself and Lalit. Lalit, say hi. And Lalit, he is the chief editor, co-founder of Tea Time with Testers. And if you're not aware what Tea Time with Testers is, it is time for you to go ahead and sign up. If nothing, because of two main reasons. First of all, it has incredibly great content. A lot of people contribute to that. Second of all, it's free. So you can get great testing content for free. Just go to Tea Time with Testers. And the story behind it, and on the other hand, I work for a company called Practices. I'm one of the co-founders and chief architect there. And what we have in Practice, obviously, it's a testing tool, not automation. We do test management and visualization and stuff like that, and integration of orchestration of the testing process. So again, if you want to do, sorry, someone is enabled closed captioning. If you want to check out a pretty cool test management system, go ahead and check it out. And Lalit also posted Tea Time with Testers link. But we're talking here about the state of testing. Let's call it project if you want. And the story behind it, and I haven't told it in a while. I was writing a blog post. I remember it was 10 years ago. I know it because this is the 10th report that we're doing. And I was looking for data. I wanted to find some testing milestones and KPIs to try to say, hey, we should be doing that and that based on the numbers. And I wasn't able to find it. And I went to someone who I thought would have the data, the editor of Tea Time with Testers, and says, hey, Lalit, where do we get data? And he came back to me a couple of days later and said, nothing. I couldn't find anything. On the other hand, there were all sorts of reports like the state of agile and obviously other reports out there. And we said, hey, why don't we run a state of testing? And how do you run a state of test? It's very simple. You create a survey, you post it up, you ask all your friends, families, colleagues, and everyone that you know in the testing community, hey, can you help us to get this answered? Once you have that data, you create a report and you share it with the world. And that is the state of testing. Basically, the whole idea is to discover and divulge as much information as we can. And it started as a snapshot. Obviously, you ask every year, are you doing that and that and that? But with time, we realized that we actually had the ability to start seeing trends as they were happening. So we started seeing how waterfall started declining and agile was getting up, and all of a sudden people were talking about DevOps, and it was there, and BDD, and it was there. So we're able to start seeing trends as they happened. And if you're in testing enough, you know that you don't look at what's going on now, you look at the trend and you try to, Wayne Gretzky style, try to understand where the puck is going to be later. And basically be there in order to understand what it is. And if for nothing else, if you're a tester and you want to stay up to date, what do I need to learn next? Okay, and I think that for me, that is one of the biggest things. I go over the state of testing and I try to say, hey, they're talking about this and I'm not really keen on that, so I'm going to go and try to learn that. So it's actually pretty neat. And it has been running 10 years in a row. It's 100% free. You can download it whenever you want. And it has been answered literally by thousands and thousands of people, okay? Because it's free and we really don't gain, other than maybe a little bit of publicity, we don't gain anything for it. We don't charge and we won't charge. And you can go to the first state of testing and basically download all of them you want. And if you want the raw data, send me an email. I might be able even to get it. And here is where you get it from, okay? If you have any questions, contact me later on. I'll be happy to answer them. Now, what we also do, this became a tradition, is basically to take the state of testing, cherry pick a couple of the data points that we thought are interesting and try to review them with people from the community that we really appreciate their inputs. And here we have them. And I want a big round of applause for our panel. Now, the first person in our panel, and I should do ladies first, but Lalit is here first. So we're going to give him that. So Lalit, as I mentioned, he's the editor of Tea Time with Testers, originally from India, right now in Hamburg, with his family and dog. I need to read this, but you are an agile, no? You work at Accenture as the manager of the DevOps chapter for Accenture Hamburg. And from what I heard from what Lalit does, he actually goes over many organizations trying to check how they're working, how they're testing their process, and basically help them to do it better. Okay. So, Lalit, anything to add to that?
You summed it up well. Thank you.
Oh, he's also part of the directors of the Association of Software Testing. I know because we're sitting on the board together. And he's all around a great fellow. Next, we have Lisa. Hi, Lisa. If you haven't heard about Lisa Crispin, that's either because A, you don't read books or you have been under a rock for a while. Lisa right now is a consultant, but she used to be a tester. The thing that I appreciate most about Lisa is her contribution to the community together with Janet Gregory. She's the co-author of the Agile Testing series. It used to be a book, right now it's a series of books. And I tell people that the nicest thing I've done with that book, I remember there was a while for about 2-3 years, I was a consultant myself, and I started getting to all these companies that were adopting Agile. And I told them that what I want to do for every one of their Agile teams, I want them to buy one book and share it with them. And I used to buy copies of the Agile testing book and put it in there. And people at the beginning were a little bit skeptical. Why should I read a book about testing? I know what testing is. Obviously, a developer knows what testing is. And after about 2 to 3 weeks, you start getting people quoting from the book and recommending from the book. Because again, I'm not sure how much we're doing that. We will talk about it in one of the questions, but Agile testing is not something that testers do. And I think that Agile quality is something that people need to understand. And so I really love talking with Lisa and going over the stuff that she works on. And Lisa currently lives in Vermont. That it's a pretty cool and nice green place. Anything to add that I missed?
Well, thank you for those kind words. And we're so happy our books have helped so many people. And we've evolved our Agile testing whole team approach into something we're now calling holistic testing, because it just encompasses so much all the way around that whole DevOps cycle. And Janet and I have just written yet another book, but it's a really short one, 37 pages, and you can download it for free on agiletestingfellow.com. So we'd love for people to see how we've kind of expanded our approach.
I actually love the holistic approach. I remember when Janet first published it, it was January or February last year, and it blew me away because it made so much sense. If you want to put on the chat the link to that, I guess that people will be able to download from there.
Yeah, Janet's the idea person, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. You don't give yourself credit, and that's just the way you work. But we like you that way. Last but not least, Daniel Knott from Hamburg, Germany. And when I think about Daniel, I usually think about mobile testing. Not only I have his books for references. He's the book of the mobile app testing book, and it's a pretty. I think that it's very specific but intensive and correct. It gives you the whole approach for that. You are the head of quality. I forgot the name of the company you're working with right now. Where are you working?
Marwan Wolf. It's a company name. It's a German IT consultancy. That's okay.
Excellent. And Daniel is not only an author, he's a blogger. He's a writer. I know that we have collaborated and practiced with him in the past. And anything to add that I missed?
No, thanks for the introduction, Joel. Looking forward to today.
He's got an awesome YouTube channel. Just saying.
Right, I forgot about it. Yes. And I guess that's a pretty cool thing, because a lot of, you know what? I wish I would have become a tester like now, because you just have so much content you can learn from. I remember back then it was go ahead and buy 3 books and read them. Right now you have so much content. But again, we're digressing. I do that all the time. So let's get down to business, people. What we're going to do right now, and again, this is a tradition that we do. Basically, we will take 1 or 2 graphs or KPIs or points from the State of Testing report, and we'll try to analyze them. Okay, and if you have any questions, go ahead and ask using the chat or the Q&A, and you can do it now, you can do it later, and we'll try just to go over that. So the first point that I wanted to bring forward goes very much into CI, CI/CD, and again, I think that we abuse it, it's mostly CI, not so much CI/CD, but we call it like that. And we have been asking for a while, first of all, how much are they aware that their company, their team is working with CI and how many projects? And then we ask a follow-up question. Are testers part of that CI/CD process? And first of all, I think that if someone says, we can see here the bluish ones, these are the results for this year. The more tail ones are the ones for last year. And you can see that at least more people are seeing themselves or are aware of the CI process. I say aware because I'd be amazed if we have companies on 2023 that do not have a CI process. Again, unless you're an IT firm just deploying stuff, but again, let's put that on the side. So we see an increase in that, on the awareness of that. The part that it's a little bit more worrisome is when we ask if people are part of that process, meaning, are you as a tester, do you feel part of the process? And we see a little bit of an increase on the people who are saying, yes, we are part. Again, a little bit of an increase on the amount of people who say they have access to the CI reports, but they're not really part of it. And again, a little bit of a decline on the no's, but they are still very, very high, meaning only 40% are part of it. Only 60% have access to the reports. We're talking all the time about shifting left, and shifting left, you can do a lot of shift left movements, let's say, but shouldn't we be more involved? Or maybe we shouldn't, and it's okay. So I wanted to ask, what do you have to say for that? And because I didn't start with ladies on the intros, we'll start with Lisa today, and then we'll move on.
Well, this is one of my favorite topics, and I've really focused the last several years on getting testers to get involved, on the right side of that DevOps loop and be concerned with getting our product in production and testing in production and learning from production what our users are doing, identifying problems quickly, responding to them quickly. I find that, because I experienced this myself, a lot of testers just feel sort of overwhelmed by a whole new set of tools and gosh, how will I use those? But monitoring and observability is I've heard people call it simply forms of exploratory testing in production, tool assisted. And we really need these testing skills. We need our question asking. We need our analytical skills, our ability to spot anomalies. We need all that on the right. We need testers involved in all those testing activities that are on the right side of that DevOps loop. So I think that there's just some fear, and I hope that people will take time to just start learning and seeing it's just learning like everything else we've learned. It's nothing scarier.
How about shifting left? Because I get exactly what you're saying about shifting right. I do think, by the way, that traditionally speaking, we have been more cautious towards shifting right, because maybe up to now we have been part of the dev team and not so much part of the ops teams. But even when I go into the dev team and I ask people, hey, what about your unit testing? And they say, oh, yes, we have unit testing, and that's fine. Then you say, what is being covered? No, I don't know. That's not my point. I don't have a clue. Let's not go over why aren't you basically orchestrating between the coverage of the unit test and the coverage of the API testing and the integration testing? I mean, why are you scared of that? I feel that we're not doing that enough. We're not even interested. That's the point that bothers me. We don't even care. Lali, do you see something like that?
Well, my understanding of shifting left recently has been like split into two ways of understanding things. When I was working with a very high-performing, self-managing agile team, I realized that shifting left as a tester for me was more to test early, understanding the requirements and testing right from the ideation phase. However, the more I saw different organizations working, shifting left also means holding a developer responsible for the code he's producing. Because traditionally, what I have seen happening is programmers write code and they throw the spaghetti off the fence, and testers are expected to test the code against the acceptance criteria, which I expect to work, obviously. So if our understanding of shifting left is asking developers to take more responsibility and write their code that fulfills the acceptance criteria, then I'm sorry what you have been doing thus far. If we really want to shift left in a meaningful way, I would say testers need an opportunity to get involved early enough, and they should also be given time and provisions to do technical explorations as early as possible. So testing against the acceptance criteria doesn't have to be an expert job, but it got to be a basic understanding between the team. So that's what I'm currently struggling with, Joel.
By the way, hold that point because we're going to be talking about developer testing in a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There's another question about that. But Daniel, what do you think of this?
I see it a similar way that what Lisa just said is that I think that why testers are really involved in this whole CI/CD process is just like the whole amount of tools that we are that we have to deal with basically as a job as a software tester. Because I have seen it also like on the client side that many companies still think that okay, we need to do like automation. So here's an automation tool, deal with it. And then if you have unexperienced testers, they of course they jump onto the tool, say, okay, let's do it, let's automate everything. And they don't have the time to set back and to take a look at the CI/CD pipeline and the process on what is going to do there. And there's so much potential in this process, in that phase, or in that setup, in the maintenance of that pipeline, where we can add so many like valuable insights and asking the right questions and also supporting this process in order to add value to the whole holistic point of view from the development point of view. So that's important. And I think that's the tricky part as well. And I think that also that still too many companies have the complete wrong perception of what testing is, right? I mean, they just think, okay, it's testing, you click some buttons, as Lalit just mentioned, there are some acceptance criteria, just follow the guide, and then we're done with testing. But that's completely wrong. I mean, we have to, that's why I also like this holistic name, that we have to take everything from the moment there is a product idea or the service idea, whatever should be implemented. We have to think about quality. We have to enable the quality. We have to inject the quality at that point. And then we have not only to check for what should be tested, what should be developed, but how is the organization like set up? What are the processes? Like how is the discovery phase handled? How is the user feedback in the end covered coming back to the team? So this complete cycle is something that we should be involved in. And that's something that companies don't see yet. And I think they have to first make their own experience in a bad way before they learn the hard way. Like we should involve like testers in all the aspects. But this then points to another point, is that usually testers are only a few of us in a team or in a company compared to the development force, to the product management force, to design people. And that's the second pitfall that companies do. Is like, okay, now we have 2 testers, come on, we have 50 developers, they can do it somehow. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do. And then we have not only shift left, we have, I would say we have a shift from shift left to shift far right, and then back again, which comes back to DevOps, right? And so there's lots of potential for us. But as I said, if we have young, talented testers coming from university or like 1 or 2 years in the job, they can be burned easily with the overwhelming job as a tester. And that's something we have to, being advocates for, to talk about the topic and bring it to awareness.
Lisa, you have been nodding all the time.
No, 100% on what both of them said. So time is a big thing, and both Daniel and Lalit mentioned that. And, when you're just expecting people to, test the quality into that product and do it fast, you're not going to give anybody an opportunity to learn.
Popular term is
but I think that time is an issue, but I think that, and Lisa, I will relate to your background and my background because none of us are technical. We got to testing by mistake.
I would argue with that. I was a programmer first.
So you were a programmer? I thought you weren't. No, so I'm meaning someone else. So I'm the only one in here that when I got into testing, it was overwhelming because
Mm.
you were talking with semi-gods who knew how to write in ones and zeros. And it took me about 3 weeks to understand that it was not the case. And then they were writing all sorts of code. And, you know, you're afraid at the beginning to touch it. And these guys know so much. And all of a sudden, they tell you, go ahead and figure out how to work with a tool. Long story short, a lot of non-background technical testers are overwhelmed and they don't even want to open a log because they think that they're not going to be able to read it or open a CI job report and read it. And okay, it's not English, but it's not so far off. So what's the point here? And I think that Daniel, you said it right, because we're burning our staff instead of telling them, hey guys, this is your challenge, prioritize, get out of your testing boxes and look how do you push quality engineering forwards.
Well, and collaborate too.
The
whole team needs to take responsibility for it and help these newer people, you know, collaborate with them, pair with them, ensemble with them, and do it together so everybody can learn.
But I think that first of all, we need to take a very big eraser and take away their boundaries and tell them, hey, it's quality, whole team quality. So if they're go ahead and do it. And instead of that, we try to put them into boxes. But yeah, I think that to wrap it, because we have other points to talk, meaning we are doing ourselves this favor, but by trying to stick to our, I don't know, comfort zones, places that we know, and teaching the new generations to be there. Okay. So one bad for us, we need to fix it in the next round. Next question. And this is an interesting one. And someone was asking if I know how to run a survey. And they were saying if I know how to run a survey, because they said yes. So if you notice, we talk here development models in their teams, and obviously 91% of people are saying that within their teams they have Agile, and DevOps is going up nicely. I hope that people do understand what they're talking about DevOps, because I'm not sure, that's another discussion, I'm not sure that they know what they mean. Modern testing, nice, we keep it there. I think that you need to be very much niche oriented to realize what we're talking about here, the Alan Jensen, the Alan Page from Jensen models, stuff like that, but it's there. But the point that it keeps lingering, what's going on with waterfall? How come we have 23% people saying they still have waterfall models? And yeah, BDD is going up and TDD is maintained 20%. But what do you think? I mean, I went over and realized, yes, we do know how to run our models. And the answer to this was that people are talking about legacy products. And apparently no one is switching those AS400 based software projects into Agile. They're keeping them on waterfall because, you know, if it works, don't fix it. And they're moving into Agile. But I think that more important than not, and let's link it back to what we were saying before. If we see so much variance, and if we see that people are calling stuff differently and using different models, if I was to be a tester today, let's say, I'm not going to say a newbie, but someone who is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years into the testing world, looking at all these models, what do I need to learn or unlearn if you want? And we started with Lisa last time. I have Lalit one off. So let's start with Lalit. What if you were a beginner tester, or you know what? If you were a test lead and you have junior testers in your team, where would you push them to learn? What's important? Lalit?
Oh, it's me first? Okay. I'm actually really taking this question seriously, because in my experience, teams call them.
So you should.
Teams call themselves Agile, but they're anything but Agile. And if I'm asking a newbie tester to understand what Agile looks like, how it functions, and if they realize, okay, none of this is happening in this project, so what should I do? To save them and spare the horror, I would ask the testers to be open-minded, critically analyzing the context around them, and be good at communication and be adaptive. If they are to perform good work, no matter what model their project is following and whatever they are calling it, Instead of getting stuck with the definitions and so-called processes, my recommendation would be to understand how things are functioning and find your way out how to perform better in the circumstances you are put into. That's your job as a tester, to observe the subtleties of human behavior around you and give your best shots to make things happen.
So you're talking about the humanistic parts of testing and the parts about communication, coaching, stuff like that.
Yes.
And critical thinking, I think that everyone
Absolutely
agrees that that's a good part. Daniel, what else would you put in the mix?
Yeah, I can only 100% agree on that. I would also say, like, okay, don't fall in love with whatever is written down here, like Agile DevOps and so forth. It's more like to have this open mind and to be adaptable, to adapt to the situation that you will face. I mean, the first thing when I saw the slide and when you mentioned, like, hey, there's like 23% still waterfall like projects, this might be not only like existing running legacy projects, but maybe also something in a regulatory environment, right? So product that have like huge regulatory checks that you have to do, something that, I don't know, medical devices and so forth. So that's what I meant with being adaptable, and see if this is the right setup for you, if it works well for you, if you can really add the most value to the team, to that situation, and then just go for it. And then don't live in those, let's say, boundaries or barriers. Let's say, okay, we're doing waterfall, that's the way we have to do it. Be open-minded and be courageous enough and to try to change something if you see there's something that is not working well, right? So that's the thing I would say. And of course, yeah, communication. I mean, you can see it all over the place. I mean, I just worked with a client lately, and it boiled down to communication mistakes. It was not the tool, it was not the process, it was not CI/CD, whatever. It was just bare wrong communication. Yeah, and that's important to have. No?
Well, you'd be amazed how difficult it is for people to communicate, especially even if we put aside culture. Okay, let's and we shouldn't, because the fact that we're a global village right now and start from accents all the way through mannerisms, or even I've been working, I'll give you an example. I work a lot with Japan, and in Japan, the culture, many times they're not going to tell you no, they're going to keep it quiet. And for an Israeli, the first thing out of your mouth is no. Okay, so we have here a clash, and cultural issues are very big. So I'm 100% with you on communication, but and I'll get to that in a minute. But Lisa, what's missing here? What else would you put in the mix?
Back when I first started on an extreme programming team, Alistair Coburn, who was one of the pioneers of extreme programming, or Crystal was his methodology. He did a research study in trying to decide what makes projects successful. Is it the platform? Is it the tooling? Is it the programming language? And this is an academic study, scientific study, and the result was it's the people. And when you hire the right people and get out of their way and let them do their best work, your project will succeed. I have worked on high performing waterfall teams. There's nothing inherently wrong with waterfall as long as you don't have silos. And if you're in a business domain where releasing every 6 months to a year is okay, waterfall can work. What's important are the development practices. So my waterfall team in the early 90s, guess what? We did almost 100% unit test coverage. We had continuous integration. We had automated deployment. We had all the modern practices, and everybody worked from the beginning of the project to the end. Everybody collaborated. And what I learned myself is the most important thing is to build relationships. And this especially hit home the last few years when I was trying to edge into like a different career. And I wanted to get involved with the teams, the site reliability teams and platform teams that were doing monitoring and observability, because I thought I could add value there and I wanted to learn it. But I didn't have the skills. I don't have the coding skills. I didn't know how to use those tools. What I had to do was get to know people, make friends with them, so that they would help me so I could learn from them. And when, I learned when I start a new job, the number one thing to do is reach out, not only within the team you're on, but outside of that team. Ask somebody, hey, could I schedule a 30-minute one-on-one with you? And if that goes well, could we do this every couple of weeks? Building up that network of people who will collaborate you and building up your own collaboration skills, learn their language. So if you want to get into something like DevOps, well, you better learn the DevOps terminology so that you can communicate with them. Hopefully teach them some testing terminology. But it's like Lalit and Daniel both said, it's about communication, and that's what counts, not your methodology or your tools.
And I like that because you said something about talking their language, and a lot of people think that talking their language, that means go ahead and learn English. And again, as a non-native English speaker, that's important. I can vouch for that. But I think that learn their language is to understand what they're telling you. And it kind of rolls back into technical jargon, but even technical stuff. It goes into being in a meeting and being able to understand what people are saying. And if you're doing a walkthrough over code, to at least be able to follow what the code is doing and to ask intelligent questions or interesting questions. And it's not something that happens overnight, but it happens only if you are willing to do it. And again, my first walkthrough, didn't understand anything. I mean, after the walkthrough, I went to the developer and says, okay, can you please speak to me as if I was a 3-year-old? And he went over that and said, oh, you see this if? Here is where it's open, here is where it closes. And he basically started teaching me development. But meaning, as I said, you need to not be afraid to jump into that cold pool and start swimming. Okay, you're not going to swim by looking at other people do it. So I think that communication, it's not only about language, it's about being able to understand what others are saying. And again, it will come through time. But I think that more than anything else, we need to stop being afraid. We're not second-class citizens. And I think that is something we need to understand. And also stuff that you said on the context, to make that mental switch from testers into quality engineering. Okay. And I remember listening to that and it made perfect sense. If you have a large organization, you don't have a lot of security engineers, okay, or developers that are experts on security. They will come and work with teams here and there and make sure the stuff works. The same can work with testing. It's not that developers don't know how to do security engineering or develop around security practice, but they don't need to be the experts. And I think that it has to be more or less the same that we do. And this is a nice segue for the next question. And this is one that I love. And I love it because of something that happened about 10 years ago. So what we have been asking here is, what percentage of your testing is being done by non-testers? Okay. And I need to move this. When they say that all the testing is done only by testers, then we see that it's around 20%. It got a little bit higher from before. Less than 10% is being done by non-testers, about 34%. Let's say that it goes a little bit high, about 50 to 75% is 10%. All testing is being done by non-dedicated testers. It's only around 4%. Notice that, again, whatchamacallit, it's not the same scale of magnitude. But what we see is that if we say up to half the testing is the vast majority, it's about 80% of our testing, 85% of our testing is being done by testers. Now, what's the deal here? I remember someone 15 years ago telling me, hey, we have this deal called Agile. Developers are going to be in charge of their quality. We don't need testers anymore. We're actually letting go of all of our testers. And I'm talking here about organizations that we know that basically freed all their testers and told them developers are going to be working in their Agile teams. They let them go. Now, at least in 2 cases that I know in Israel, 6 weeks later, they rehired all their testers, okay, because they couldn't live with them and they were releasing really crappy software. But what happened with that ideal that a lot of the testing will be done by non-testers? Is it for real, or should we understand that no, it's not going to happen? Let's just move on. Emil, let's start with you.
So yeah, what happened? Of course, I don't know, but not in detail. But one thing that's coming to my mind is also the complexity that we have these days in projects, right? It's not only that we code one, let's say, web application that has an API and a database connection, but we have like the interconnectivity to other systems and services and toolings and stuff like that. So it's really complex to oversee the whole process within one role. And we could not only say, okay, that now developers do their testing, they should have their fair share on the quality aspect, right? So they have to have the quality mindset. And of course, they should do like the unit testing, integration testing. They can do code reviews. They can set up the pipeline. That's stuff that they can do in collaboration with the team and also within the discussion within testers. Yeah, and I have worked with many teams. They don't have testers at all, but they had the opportunity to get access to a quality coach or like to an advocate of quality to ask specific questions in terms they have a problem with a quality or they have testing related question. And I have seen those teams running perfectly without testers. Yeah, but these are like really experienced, not really, but experienced developers who are really open-minded and are willing to deliver high quality to their customers. And that's the big point here, I would say. And then for me, it doesn't make, I don't need to have this head on top, like, hey, this is a tester, this is a developer. We are a team and we should, do everything we can do in order to get everything in the best possible way for our customers. And then I don't care like who's doing the testing part. No.
Lisa, what do you think? Do we need testers or are developers enough?
Well, having designed surveys before myself, I know it's really hard to word the questions or have the right questions. And I just think that this is an issue that may need multiple questions and maybe different questions. For example, the last few teams I was on, we did ensemble programming or pairing. And so testing was done as part of a group. Well, how do I count that? What percentage was the non-testers? And I just think that maybe that could be broken down a little bit more. Like, are you collaborating with people who aren't testers? Are there posts?
Differently.
Oh,
put the numbers on the side. From your experience, are you seeing more developers who are rolling up their sleeves and running manual testing scenarios and trying to understand, again, themselves to unit test, but let's actually take the software over for a ride and see that it works okay?
I see that in organizations where the development leadership managers understand the value of things like exploratory testing, and they put testing skills onto the developer's skills matrix so that they can advance in their career, and they make sure that they learn from testers or somebody else how to get those testing skills, and they, that becomes part of their job. For example, as the developer on this story, I also need to do some manual exploratory testing on this story or whatever's important, in that context. So it has to be the leadership.
Commonly?
So when I see leadership, I worked with a client last year where the directors of engineering and the CTO, they really wanted the team to take that whole team approach, but they had 7 different teams that had been acquired. Their company grew by acquisition. So each team was doing its own thing. And everybody understood intellectually, yes, we should all own testing and quality, but they didn't know how to do it. And they realized they have to start explaining and training people and understanding where they are in all these different quality aspects and practices that we have, and try to build them up one at a time. So it's not something that you can just say, okay, everybody's going to do testing and that'll just start happening. It goes back to what we talked earlier about time and practice and the leadership to understand the importance of that and make it happen.
Lalit, what do you see?
I have 2 small stories to share, real stories, and I will try to share it very quickly. So in I'm sorry, I was working in this engineering team, and the engineering manager was a very big fan boy of TDD, so to speak. And I'm sorry about my throat. One fine day,
some water, man. Water
decided,
helps.
I need to go down. He decided that, hey, I think let's just do the whole stuff with TDD. We don't need testers in the team. And he was so determined to go about that because he read how we test at Google. Fine. So he removed all the testers from the team and he tried to run the show just with programmers. Surprisingly, nothing changed much. There were not a lot of happy customers, nothing changed in terms of their production bug count and all. And the moral of the story was, it really depends on how you understand testing to be if you want to decide whether you want to run the show just with programmers or only with the testers. Because for you, if testing is just about writing asserts against your acceptance criteria and check whether the code is doing what it is supposed to do and say it works, then maybe that works for you. But for you, if testing is also about doing lots of different experimentation and find out in what all ways this is not going to work, then that kind of testing requires an expert investment or dedicated efforts. And then there was the project where I was also part of the team, and I removed myself because the team was working on a prototype which was never hitting the end customer. And it was perfectly fine to make that prototype run with the data coming from the designers and just developers testing it, because the risk of losing things or having any impact was very, very, very marginal. So it really depends on what is at stake and how you understand testing to be. So if you have happy customers in mind, and if you do not want to get into a situation where you find out, oh, this is not working in these many ways, then I think it's a good thing to invest in dedicated testing. But if you're okay with hearing directly from your customers that you suck, then you're also whoever you want to put on test. It's in the end about the context and the risk you're willing to take there.
I agree with you, but I think also that it's a lot about company culture, and company culture / at least as you said it, the agenda of higher management in that case, because I've worked in teams that did not have a quality culture where developers should test, but still there were some developers that you knew it's going to be hard to find bugs on their code. Whereas there were some developers that you basically got the first thing, you got a text bug, you leave it empty, pressed enter, and the application would crash, and then you can go and make some coffee. Because they wouldn't test even the simplest of things. And these people, again, developers who are extremely cautious and conscious of their health. And some rock stars who believe that they're artists and they should do the stuff that they only love what to do and they're passionate about. And if testing is not something they're passionate, then they're not going to do it. And as long as management allows that to happen, because I remember coming to a VP of R&D and telling me, Joel, as much as I would love that developer to go and do some testing, his time is very expensive, and I want him to be used writing code. And I wanted basically to pull my hair out and said, if he was to be doing testing, he would be writing better code himself. But again, I think that it's about culture. But to cut a long story short, I'm not sure that we will see a place where developers are going to be taking full responsibility of testing, again, as a main. Okay, as much as, you know what, even if we're seeing, for example, I was skeptical 10 years ago if automation was going to be so widely diverse, accepted. And you know what, it's great. There's so many testing tools right now, and they're better and cheaper that we have a lot more automation. I'm on the same place today with developer testing. I don't see that non-testers will be taking the bulk of the testing, and we will become mostly testing coaches, as much as I would love for that to happen. But I think that it's mostly about culture at this point, more than anything else. But okay, last question. And I want to remind our audience that they can ask questions as well. And we're talking here about automation. And what we've been asking for a lot of time as well is there's this, I'm not sure where it came from, idea that you're doing automation instead of manual testing. And so we have been asking, okay, how much has automation been allowing you to not run testing. Okay, so about 3% says that automation replaced all of their tests. They're doing no manual testing at all. And again, I've heard about that. 18% said that they took away 75% of their testing. 25% said it took up to 50%. If we go over the, let's say the last 50% or over 60% says that on the best of cases, around 25% or a little bit lower, or even it hasn't. Some people, I remember a comment saying that was never the intention. So they answered on that they do not have to do it. On the other hand, we are asking where people are applying their automation, because again, we know scripting can be applied anywhere. Okay, and we have been asking that for a while. And stuff that I really like seeing, it's really encouraging for me. For example, data generation that is being going up because people understand them to be having that more. Obviously, load and stress testing, we see that more. CI, functional, more about unit tests. So my question here, and again, it's a teaser more than anything else. Will automation replace manual testing? And if not, then why are we running it? And let me add to that, what will happen once we have more AI in the coming years? Maybe the answer will change, okay? So as a tester, where should I see myself with regards to automation? Lisa, what do you think? Lisa?
Oh, me. Yeah. One of the things I was puzzled over with this question is, are you talking here about regression testing or all the bazillions of different kinds of testings that there are, some of which cannot be automated? So again, I think it's a question that I would love to see this broken down a little bit more. But you know, I think that automation, it remains a challenge for many teams, and even high performing teams. I mean, the last team I was on full time, we had tons of tests and we had pretty good test coverage and with flaky tests, and we had to constantly go back and do maintenance on our tests and refactor them and make them better, and try different frameworks to, even for unit testing, to make it easier to do it and make the test more effective. So it's a continual battle. It's not going to go away, and teams need to focus, like, where do they want to do the automation first? I always recommend, if they're going to automate regression tests, that they better start with unit testing and preferably test-driven development. You know, that they need to come up with a strategy and follow the strategy. But I just, you know, we know that there are things that need to be done that are human-centric testing that need humans to do them. And so unfortunately, there are a lot of business managers who think it can all be automated and they want to buy a tool that'll automate it all and be done with it.
And there's always going to be a salesman that says that yes, their tool can do it, and so there will be that. But what Daniel was saying, because he didn't make it up, I know of at least another 5, if not 10 organizations who said, hey, we used to be doing manual testing, we don't do manual testing anymore, everything's 100% automated. How do you explain that?
I think that maybe they're just thinking only about regression testing and not the other forms of testing. We don't know, but that would be my guess. When people think automation, they're usually thinking about regression testing, in my experience.
Yeah. Okay, Daniel, what do you think?
I think that this also boils down again to, like, what kind of managers, team leads are in charge for this position and stuff, right? I mean, if you have person that have no idea about testing and what testing can add the value to a team, this person will of course say, let's automate all the things, right? And then I agree totally with Lisa. What is the background again of this person? If this, let's say it's an engineering manager with who's coming from a backend perspective, this person will have a unit test in mind, right? Of course, then we can do and focus on unit testing and replace the manual. Let's replace testing with automation. So that's again, for me, it's an attitude and also a mindset that needs to be, like, changed within the teams and within companies, and to get the right perception of what can be automated first of all, and then do the right automation on the right layer, right? I mean, we have the models in place, and usually when I work with teams and I see what they have automated, it's like they just started, like, to automate something, right? they didn't make a plan. They didn't thought about, okay, what's the risky part of our application? Is the application changing often? And what can we automate already and stuff like that? And I think that, like, I don't like manual testing, but I don't think that testing will be ever replaced by any machine or any AI system, because the software in the end, or the product, is not being used by an automation framework, and it's not being used by an AI. Maybe it's coming in the future, who knows? But it's used by us, by humans, and we use it differently. And so that's why I think we need like a big portion of testing still in organization, in teams, and yeah, that's my stake here.
Lalit, where are you with that?
Well, I mean, my explanation to that is very simple. You can only automate what you know, and to know what you know, and to know what you don't know, and to even know what are your known knowns, unknown unknowns, known unknowns, you need human intelligence to work on it. So if we already have something or someone that tells us, hey, these are our known knowns, these are our known unknowns, these are our unknown unknowns, with whatever tool you want to do that, then probably, yes, the entire stuff, not only testing, everything will be replaced by machines. You just create your checklist, put it in the vending machine, and your software will be delivered quickly like a pizza from the oven. But I think that that's good for the sci-fi novels. My serious answer is no. No automation can replace the need of human intelligence and activities that require intellectual decision making. Testing is innately human activity. Its nature is intellectual. I don't see any way how one could replace it with any kind of automation.
Can I be the other side of the argument in here for a second?
Try your best.
Thanks, man. I think that today it's a no, like a very, very big no, but mainly because we have been doing, in practice, we have been doing a lot of research into AI. And up to now, I think that most of the AI comes on self-healing automation and self-healing object recognition, which is, don't get me wrong, it's great because all of a sudden, you know, our tests are a lot less fragile and less flaky and all that you want. But people started playing with ChatGPT's kind things. I mean, there's now BART and other systems. And what these things are doing, at the end of the day, they're using AI in order to aggregate a lot of sources of data. So, and I saw the example. So I was saying, ChatGPT, can you help me to come up with a framework to test the login page? And I'm skeptical, and still am, but you did get, not sure if it's going to be 60% or 70% coverage of the scenarios that you would have put in there. And these algorithms, if we have a good enough database, they can be improved. So what I'm thinking is, and again, looking into practice, one of the things that we want to do, we want to make testing more efficient for testers, provide you with more ideas, stuff like that. So I think that with time, and it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years, it might be 50 years, we will be lowering the amount of inputs, human inputs we need to put in there. By the way, it's going to happen, I think, hand in hand with development being done by scripts and by computers. Okay, so I always say the moment that we have development that is being done by non-humans, by AI, then we'll have testing being done by AI, and it will still lag a little bit behind. I'm not sure that it will take everything out, but I think that we will improve it and we will lower it more. Now, I still think, and I agree with you guys, and lady, it's a human thing. It's more than human, it's based on critical thinking, because we don't have enough time to test everything. At the end of the day, all of us always do risk assessment. What risk are we willing to take? Because it makes sense not to test at all. And it will still be there. But I think that it will be more interesting because we will be more challenged into what to test. We won't need to test everything. We will need most of anything to apply more inputs into how to test it. Okay. So I do think that it's coming, but again, we're not there yet. We're not even close to, and whenever someone tells me they have 100% automation, I go and tell them, well, it's either because your system doesn't really connect with humans. It might be an API-based system, so everything is like a closed button, you can do it. Or you're doing something that your humans are testing for you and reporting the bugs, and they're willing to live with that. And that's okay, meaning, who am I to judge? Okay, but I'm a little bit more that. Anyone else, anything else to put in here? Sorry, I was doing my monologue here.
Jason Urban has written very interesting post about AI needs testing. It's also getting published in Data with Testers. Hopefully the issue will be out tomorrow. But that throws some counter arguments on the things you said, Joel. I'm still also skeptical.
I'll go over that.
I firmly believe it's quite difficult to replace something highly intellectual in nature, and particularly with the rise of AI, I would say testing has become way more important than it was ever. I won't be surprised if we enter in an era where software is written by machines and there are human testers who are supposed to check the correctness and usefulness and finally decide whether this is good to go in the market.
And we'll be talking about it on the State of Testing Survey of 2027, I'm guessing.
Could be.
Which makes perfect sense. So we have about 2 more minutes, but I do wanted to ask anyone here, if you have any additional thoughts about where we are today and where we're heading in general. Again, it doesn't need to be around any of the questions, anything in particular to people who are here. Anything to say?
Well, I do. I'm personally trying to learn more about AI and what can we use it for to help with testing, because people I know who are already using it are getting some good results. So I'm glad that we have articles in good publications like Tea Time for Testers to help us learn about that. And I encourage everybody, there's always something new to learn. It's a little overwhelming, but go with the things that interest you the most and focus on those.
I'm going to echo that. And I think that it's not only about overwhelm. I think that we underestimate the importance of it. Sometimes we feel that we already know and that we're experts. And I think that we need to be a little bit more humble around that and continue learning as much as we can. Excellent, people. So we are at the top of the hour. I do want to thank everyone, obviously our listeners for being with us here, and people who will get the recording. But Daniel, Elite, Lisa, thanks a million for joining me here. And again, for talking this beautiful morning or afternoon, guys, in Germany. Hope that it's a nice day. It's a pretty nice day today here. Thanks, everyone. And again, we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.